Adriana Wells pounded on his door at 11:47 p.m., mascara streaming down her face like war paint. Randy Samuel opened the door and froze. His CEO, the woman worth $2 billion, stood in his hallway, shaking broken, begging him not to close the door. "Please," she whispered. "I didn't have anywhere else to go." A black single father, a white female CEO. Midnight. His apartment. Randy knew what this could cost him. His job. His reputation. Everything he'd spent 34 years protecting. But he also knew what closing that door would cost his soul. What happened next would destroy them both and rebuild them into something neither expected. Comment the city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story has traveled. Part 1. The Invisible Man. 3 weeks before Adriana showed up at his door, Randy Samuel had been exactly what the world expected him to be. Invisible. He worked on the 4th floor of Wells Technologies' accounts payable department, the place nobody visited unless their reimbursement check was late. 34 years old, single father, quiet. Careful, forgettable. That was the plan. That had always been the plan. His phone buzzed as the elevator climbed toward his floor. Mrs. Patterson Jallin's kindergarten teacher. "Third call this week." Randy answered. "Mrs. Patterson, I know. Mr. Samuel, this is the 3rd time this month. Pickup was at 3:30. It's nearly 4. I understand. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. You said that last time. I know. And I was there. I'm always there." The elevator stopped on the 32nd floor. The doors opened. Randy recognized her immediately. Everyone in the building knew Adriana Wells, the woman who had transformed a struggling startup into a billion-dollar empire in under 5 years. Tall, sharp-featured, with posture that suggested she had never once questioned whether she belonged anywhere. She stepped into the elevator. Her eyes moved past Randy like he was part of the furniture. He lowered his voice but kept talking. "I promise, Mrs. Patterson, 15 minutes. I've never missed a pickup, not once." Adriana stood 3 feet away, staring at the numbers above the door. "Fine," Mrs. Patterson said. "But, Mr. Samuel, this can't keep happening." "It won't, thank you." He ended the call. The elevator descended in silence. Just before the doors opened on the lobby, Adriana turned her head. Not enough to look at him directly, just enough to let him know she had been listening. Randy stepped out first. He nodded politely without making eye contact and walked toward the parking garage. He didn't think about her again. Adriana did. 1 week later, Randy found himself in a room he had no business being in. The quarterly merger meeting had pulled executives from every department. Directors, vice presidents, people whose salaries had more zeros than Randy's bank account. His supervisor had called in sick, which meant someone needed to present the accounts payable reconciliation report. Someone expendable, someone invisible. Randy sat at the far end of the conference table, clutching a folder of spreadsheets waiting for his 3 minutes of relevance. Around him, men in expensive suits argued about projections and profit margins. None of them looked at him. That was fine. That was safe. The meeting turned hostile within the first hour. The merger was bleeding money. Numbers didn't align. Someone needed to take the blame. Thomas Garrett, Senior Vice President of Operations, found his target. "The discrepancy is right here." He jabbed at the projection screen. "Accounting entered the wrong figures. This is why we're 3 million short." Every eye in the room slid toward Randy. The only accountant present. The lowest-ranking person at the table. The black man in a room full of white executives. He could stay quiet. He could nod, apologize on behalf of his department, let the meeting move on. That was what he always did. That was the safe play. Instead, Randy opened his laptop. "With respect, sir," he said, his voice calm and even, "the figures we submitted were accurate." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Excuse me." Garrett's face reddened. "The discrepancy comes from the Q2 revenue adjustment that your department requested in April." Randy turned his screen toward the table. I have the email chain here along with the original numbers and the revised numbers your team approved. The accounting was correct. The error originated in operations. Silence. Garrett's jaw worked like he was chewing glass. I don't know who you think you are, but thank you, Mr. Adriana's voice cut through the room like a blade. She glanced at the attendance sheet. Samuel, please send those documents to my office after the meeting. Randy nodded. Yes, ma'am. The meeting continued. Randy didn't say another word. But when he stood to leave, he caught Adriana watching him from across the room. Her expression revealed nothing. That afternoon, she asked her assistant a single question. The accountant who spoke up today. What's his name? Where does he live? Her assistant thought the request was strange but didn't ask why. Now, 3 weeks later, Adriana stood in Randy's doorway at midnight. Everything he had built his life around the rules, the caution the invisible walls threatened to collapse. I know this is crazy, she said. Her voice cracked on the last word. I know you could call the police. I know you could lose your job just for letting me stand here, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. Randy gripped the door frame. His mind raced through every possible outcome. A black man alone with a white woman, his CEO, in the middle of the night. If anyone saw them, if anyone talked, if she decided tomorrow that this was a mistake and needed someone to blame. He had spent 34 years learning how to survive in a world that didn't give second chances to men who looked like him. Don't stand out. Don't make waves. Don't give them a reason. But the woman in front of him wasn't a CEO right now. She was a human being falling apart. And somewhere behind him in the small bedroom at the end of the hall, his 5-year-old son was sleeping. The same boy Randy had been teaching to never turn away from people who needed help. What kind of lesson would he be teaching if he shut the door now? 15 minutes, Randy said quietly. I have a child sleeping. Keep your voice down. He stepped aside. Adriana walked into the apartment like someone entering a foreign country. Her eyes moved across the room, the second-hand couch with the torn armrest, the stack of children's books on the coffee table, the crayon drawings taped crookedly to the refrigerator. She sat down on the couch and stared at the wall where Jalen's artwork hung. A house, a sun, 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one small. Then she started to cry. Not the polished, controlled tears of someone who cried for effect. These were ugly, heaving sobs that shook her entire body. Randy stood frozen by the kitchen counter. He had no idea what to do with a crying billionaire. My husband, she finally managed. He was cheating on me. For 2 years. I found out a year ago, but I didn't do anything. I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe if I just worked harder, was home more, was better. She stopped, drew a shaky breath. We signed the divorce papers tonight. And when I got back to my apartment, I realized something. What? No one called. Adriana looked up at him. Her mascara had smeared into dark circles under her eyes. Not one person. I have 100 contacts in my phone, investors, board members, executives, assistants, and not one of them thought to ask if I was okay. Randy didn't respond, didn't know what to say. Do you know why I came here? Adriana continued. That day in the elevator, you were on the phone with your son's teacher and you said, I'm always there, just like that. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. She shook her head slowly. No one has ever said that to me. Not my parents, not my husband, not anyone. I've spent my whole life making sure I didn't need anyone to say it. Her voice broke again. And tonight, sitting alone in my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how you said it like you meant it. And I thought maybe, just maybe there was one person in that building who wouldn't look at me and see a title. Who wouldn't be afraid of me or try to use me. Randy exhaled slowly. He moved to the armchair across from her, keeping the coffee table between them. I'm not your therapist, he said. I'm not your friend. And tomorrow when we're both back in that building, I'm still going to be a low-level accountant, and you're still going to be the CEO. You understand that, right? I understand. Good. Randy leaned back. So, what do you actually need right now? And I mean right now. Not career advice. Not someone to fix your life. Just tonight. Adriana looked around the small apartment again. At the toys on the floor, the colorful artwork, the faint smell of laundry detergent, and maple syrup from morning breakfast. I just need to sit somewhere that feels like someone lives here, she said quietly. Just for a little while, that's all. Randy studied her face. He saw exhaustion. He saw loneliness so deep it had become its own kind of weight. And underneath all of it, he saw something he recognized. The look of someone who had built their entire life around a version of themselves that was starting to crack. He stood and walked to the kitchen. I'm going to make some tea, he said. You can stay until the water boils. Then you need to leave. Adriana nodded, but they both knew the water would take longer than 15 minutes to boil. They both knew something had already begun. The tea kettle whistled at 1:23 a.m. Randy poured 2 cups, handed one to Adriana, and sat back down in the armchair. She wrapped her hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing in the world. Can I ask you something? She said. Depends on what it is. Why did you speak up in that meeting? You could have stayed quiet. Let Garrett blame your department. That's what everyone else does. Randy took a sip of tea. Because he was wrong, and I had the proof. That's not a reason. That's a fact. Lots of people have facts and never say anything. Then I guess I got tired of being quiet. Adriana studied him over the rim of her mug. That's not it either. Randy set down his cup. You want the truth? Please. My son. Randy's voice roughened. Jalin, he's 5 years old, and every day I tell him to stand up for himself, to never let anyone make him feel small, to speak the truth even when it's hard. He paused. That morning before the meeting, he asked me why I don't smile at work. I didn't have an answer. So when Garrett started pointing fingers, I thought about Jalin. I thought about what kind of man I wanted him to see when he looked at me. And I decided I was done being invisible. Adriana was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, You know what you risked speaking up like that? Of course I know. I'm a black man who just contradicted a white VP in front of the entire executive team. Randy's voice hardened. I know exactly what I risked. I've been calculating those risks my entire life. Then why? Because some things matter more than safety. Randy met her eyes. I want my son to grow up believing that, even if I have to learn it myself. The apartment fell silent. Outside, a car passed on the street below. Somewhere in the building, a door closed. I envy you, Adriana said softly. Randy almost laughed. You envy me. The CEO of a billion-dollar company envies an accountant with a torn couch. I envy this. She gestured around the room. The drawings on the wall, the toys on the floor, the fact that someone in this apartment needs you to come home. Her voice dropped. My penthouse has everything money can buy, and when I walk through the door, it feels like entering a museum. Beautiful, empty, dead. Randy didn't know how to respond to that. You have something I've never had, Adriana continued. A reason to keep going that doesn't show up on a quarterly report. You think I chose this? Randy's voice sharpened. You think I woke up one day and decided I wanted to be a single father working a dead-end job? I didn't choose any of this. I was pushed into it. What do you mean? Randy hesitated. This was more than he had told anyone in years, but something about the darkness, the quiet, the strange intimacy of 2 broken people sharing tea at 1 a.m. It loosened something in him. My wife left when Jalin was barely walking, he said. She said I wasn't ambitious enough, said I was too careful, too safe, too afraid to take risks. And you know what? She was right. So why didn't you change? Because I'm a black man in a world that doesn't give people like me second chances. Randy leaned forward, his voice intense. One mistake and everything falls apart. One wrong word in a meeting and I'm the angry black man nobody wants to work with. One complaint from the wrong person and I'm out the door with nothing. He shook his head. I live small because I have to, because the world has never once given me room to fail. Adriana didn't look away. And your wife couldn't accept that. She said I was teaching our son to be afraid. Said she didn't want Jalan growing up watching his father shrink. Randy's jaw tightened. So she left. Found someone bolder, braver, more willing to take risks. Last I heard, she's living in California. Hasn't seen Jalan in 3 years. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choice. I made mine. Randy looked at the drawings on the refrigerator, the stick figures, the crooked house, the smiling sun. I chose my son. Every single day I choose him. And I'll keep choosing him until there's nothing left of me. Adriana set down her mug. That's what I heard in the elevator. That's why I came here. What? I'm always there, she quoted. You said it like a promise, like an absolute, like nothing in the world could ever change it. Her eyes glistened. I've never had that. Not from my parents, not from my husband, not from anyone. And hearing you say it a stranger on a phone call, it broke something in me. Broke something? Made me realize what I'd been missing. Adriana stood abruptly and walked to the refrigerator. She stared at Jalan's drawings like they were priceless art. I have board members who would kill for my attention. I have a husband, ex-husband, who spent 2 years lying to my face. But I've never had someone who was just there, without conditions, without expectations, without wanting something in return. Randy watched her trace her finger along the edge of a crayon drawing. A dinosaur wearing a hat. Jalan's favorite. You have this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This messy, chaotic, beautiful life. And you don't even know how rare it is. I know, Randy said quietly. That's why I fight so hard to keep it. Adriana turned to face him. I should go. Yes, you should. Neither of them moved. Thank you, she said, for not closing the door, for letting me sit here, for treating me like a human being instead of a title. You are a human being. Sometimes I forget that. She picked up her purse. I won't bother you again. I just needed tonight. Needed to know that somewhere in that building there was one person who saw me. I see you, Randy said. I saw you the moment you walked into that elevator. Adriana paused at the door. What did you see? Someone pretending she didn't need help. Someone who'd been alone so long she'd forgotten what company felt like. Randy stood. Someone a lot like me. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The apartment felt smaller, warmer, like the walls were leaning in to hear their conversation. Goodbye, Randy Samuel, Adriana said. Goodbye, Ms. Wells. She opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and was gone. Randy stood there for a long time, staring at the closed door, wondering what had just happened to his carefully constructed, invisible life. At 2:47 a.m., a small voice spoke from the hallway. Daddy! Randy turned. Jalan stood in his pajamas, teddy bear clutched under one arm, eyes heavy with sleep. What are you doing up, buddy? I heard talking. Was someone here? Randy walked over and scooped his son into his arms. Just a friend. She needed some help. Was she sad? Yeah, she was sad. Jalan considered this with 5-year-old gravity. Did you make her feel better? Randy thought about Adriana's face as she left. The tears that had stopped. The small smile that had appeared when he said he saw her. I think so, he said. I hope so. Good. Jalan yawned against his father's shoulder. That's what you told me. Help people when they're sad. That's right. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Jalan nodded, satisfied with this answer. Can I sleep in your bed tonight? Sure, buddy. Come on. Randy carried his son to the bedroom, tucked him under the covers, and lay down beside him. Jalan was asleep within seconds, breathing softly, completely trusting that his father would keep the world at bay. Randy stared at the ceiling until dawn. He had spent 34 years building walls. Tonight, a stranger had knocked and he had let her in. He didn't know what that meant yet, But he knew with absolute certainty that his invisible life was about to change. The HR summons came on a Tuesday afternoon. Randy received the email at 2:07 p.m. By 2:30, he was sitting in a beige office with motivational posters that seemed to mock the conversation about to take place. The director, a thin woman named Mrs. Bradley, with reading glasses perched on her nose, didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Mr. Samuel, I'll be direct. There have been allegations regarding your relationship with Ms. Wells." Randy felt his blood turn to ice. Allegations. The board is concerned that there may be a personal involvement that could constitute a conflict of interest or a violation of company policy. What kind of allegations? That you and Ms. Wells are engaged in a romantic relationship, that you have been meeting outside of work hours, that there may be favoritism involved in your employment status. The words hit Randy like hammer blows. Everything he had feared. Everything he had tried to prevent by building walls and staying invisible. "Is there a question in there?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Mrs. Bradley folded her hands on the desk. "Do you have a romantic relationship with Ms. Wells?" Two paths opened before him. He could tell the truth. That Adriana had come to him in a moment of crisis. That they had talked. That something complicated and undefined had begun to grow between them over these past weeks. Or he could survive. "I've met with Ms. Wells a few times," Randy heard himself say. "Strictly professional. She consulted me on some accounting matters related to the merger. There's nothing personal between us." The lie tasted like ash in his mouth. Mrs. Bradley studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Very well. We'll note your statement in the file. You're free to go." Randy stood and walked toward the door. His legs felt like they belonged to someone else. As he stepped into the hallway, he saw her. Adriana was standing at the far end of the corridor just outside the boardroom. She was too far away for him to read her expression clearly, but he knew. She had heard everything. For a moment, neither of them moved. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Someone's phone rang in a distant office. Then Adriana turned and walked away without a word. The look in her eyes stayed with Randy the whole drive home. Not anger, not betrayal. Just a deep, tired sadness, the expression of someone who had learned long ago that people always chose safety over loyalty. That night, Randy sat in Jalen's doorway and watched his son sleep. The small bedroom was cluttered with toys and books. The walls were covered with drawings and stickers. The teddy bear Adriana had given him was tucked under Jalen's arm, its soft brown fur pressed against the boy's cheek. Randy thought about his father, who had worked 2 jobs his entire life and never complained. He thought about his mother, who had told him every day to keep his head down, work hard, and never give them a reason to notice him. He thought about what he had taught Jalen. Don't be afraid. Stand up for yourself. Never let anyone make you feel small. But today in that beige office with the motivational posters, Randy had done exactly what he taught his son never to do. He had shrunk. He had hidden. He had denied someone who trusted him just to protect a job he didn't even like. Jalen stirred in his sleep, pulling the teddy bear closer. "Is the teddy bear lady coming back, Daddy?" he murmured, half awake. Randy couldn't answer. A few minutes later, Jalen opened his eyes again, looking at his father with a clarity that seemed impossible for a child so young. "Daddy, are you scared of her?" Randy's throat tightened. "You told me not to be scared of anyone," Jalen said softly. "You told me brave people don't run away." The words broke something inside Randy that had been holding together for years. He sat on the edge of his son's bed, staring at the teddy bear with its ribbon and soft fur, and finally admitted the truth he had been running from his entire adult life. He wasn't teaching Jalen courage. He was teaching him how to be afraid. Randy didn't sleep that night. He sat at the kitchen table until 3 a.m., staring at a blank sheet of paper. At some point, he started writing not to Adriana, but to Jalen. Words he wanted his son to understand when he was old enough to read them. "I have spent my whole life being afraid. Afraid of being seen, afraid of being judged, afraid of giving the world a reason to take what little I have. I thought I was protecting you by teaching you to be careful. But careful isn't the same as brave. And I've been confusing the two for 34 years. He wrote until the sun came up. When Jalin padded into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from his eyes, Randy folded the letter and tucked it into his wallet. Daddy, are you okay? Randy looked at his son, at the teddy bear still clutched under one arm, at the eyes that saw everything and forgave even more. I'm going to be, Randy said. I promise. He arrived at the office before anyone else. The HR department didn't open until 8:30, so Randy sat in the lobby and waited. He watched employees trickle in, the early risers, the ambitious ones, the people who thought getting to work first meant something. None of them looked at him. He had spent years making sure of that. At 8:32, Mrs. Bradley walked past the lobby toward her office. Randy stood and followed her. Mr. Samuel. She looked surprised when she saw him in her doorway. Is there something I can help you with? Yes. Randy stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I need to correct the statement I gave yesterday. Mrs. Bradley's expression shifted from confusion to caution. She gestured for him to sit, but Randy remained standing. Yesterday you asked if I had a personal relationship with Ms. Wells. I told you it was strictly professional. He took a breath. That wasn't true. The room seemed to shrink around him. Ms. Wells and I are friends, Randy continued. We've spent time together outside of work. We've talked about things that had nothing to do with accounting or the merger. There's been no romantic relationship and no professional favoritism, but I wasn't honest with you yesterday, and I need to fix that. Mrs. Bradley removed her glasses and set them on the desk. Mr. Samuel, do you understand what you're saying? This could affect your employment status. It could affect... I understand. Randy met her eyes. And I'm saying it anyway, because I have a 5-year-old son at home, and every day I tell him to be brave, to stand up for himself, to never let anyone make him feel small. Yesterday, I looked him in the face and realized I was teaching him the opposite. I was teaching him that it's okay to lie if you're scared enough, that protecting yourself matters more than protecting the people who trust you. He shook his head slowly. I won't do that anymore. If you want to fire me, fire me. But I'm done denying someone just to keep a job I never loved in the first place. Mrs. Bradley stared at him for a long moment. Then she picked up her glasses and put them back on. I'll update the file, she said quietly. You can go. Randy nodded and walked out. His hands were shaking, but for the first time in longer than he could remember, his chest didn't feel tight. He found Adriana's address in the company directory the same way she had found his. The penthouse was in a building downtown, all glass and steel, the kind of place Randy had only ever seen from the outside. The doorman looked him up and down, but let him pass when Randy gave Adriana's name. The elevator rose 30 floors in silence. When Adriana opened her door, she was wearing jeans and an old university sweatshirt. Her hair was unwashed. Behind her, Randy could see moving boxes stacked against the walls. Randy. Her voice was flat, careful. What are you doing here? I went to HR this morning, he said. I told them the truth. I told them we're friends. Adriana's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Why? Because I was a coward yesterday. I chose my fear over you, and that's not who I want to be. It's not who I want my son to see. Randy looked past her at the boxes, the half-empty rooms, the penthouse that was already starting to look like a place nobody lived. What's happening here? Adriana stepped back, letting him inside. I resigned this morning. The board was going to force me out anyway after the merger, so I decided to leave on my own terms. She gestured at the boxes. I'm not sure where I'm going yet. First time in my life I don't have a plan. Randy walked slowly through the living room. The furniture was expensive. The view was stunning. But Adriana was right. The space felt like a museum. There were no drawings on the walls, no toys on the floor, no evidence that anyone had ever truly lived here. You're not going to miss this, he said. No. Adriana sat on the arm of a white leather couch. I spent 15 years climbing to get here. And now that I'm leaving, I can't think of a single thing I want to take with me. Randy turned to face her. I owe you an apology. No, you don't. Yes, I do. What I did yesterday, denying you in front of HR, that wasn't about you. It was about me. About all the years I spent making myself small because I thought that was the only way to survive. Adriana shook her head. You don't owe me anything. I'm the one who showed up at your door uninvited. I'm the one who pulled you into my mess. You gave me something I didn't know I needed, Randy said. A chance to see myself through someone else's eyes. Someone who wasn't judging me, or afraid of me, or trying to use me. And I wasted it because I was scared. He took a step closer. I don't know what we are. I don't know what this is, or where it goes. But I'm done pretending you don't exist. I'm done pretending that the only way to protect myself is to push away everyone who gets close. Adriana looked at him for a long time. Then slowly she smiled, the first real smile he had seen from her since that night at the cafe. Jalin asked about you, Randy added. He calls you the teddy bear lady. Adriana laughed, and the sound filled the empty penthouse in a way nothing else could. The teddy bear lady? She wiped her eyes. I've been called a lot of things. That might be my favorite. He wants to know if you're coming back. What did you tell him? I told him I didn't know. Randy met her eyes. But I wanted to find out. Adriana stood slowly. The space between them shrank. I'm not the same person I was 3 weeks ago, she said. I don't have a company. I don't have a husband. I don't even have a plan for tomorrow. Neither do I. You have Jalin. I do. And right now he's the only plan I need. Adriana's eyes glistened. What are we doing, Randy? This doesn't make sense. A CEO and an accountant, a white woman and a black man. Everything about this is complicated. I know. People will talk. Let them. Your career. I was never going to be promoted anyway. We both know that. Randy's voice was steady. I spent 34 years trying to fit into a world that was never designed for me. I followed every rule. I stayed invisible. And it got me exactly nowhere. He reached out and took her hand. Maybe it's time to stop following the rules. Maybe it's time to build something that actually matters. Adriana looked down at their intertwined fingers, his dark, hers pale, both trembling slightly. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. What if we ruin each other? What if we save each other? She laughed again, but this time it caught in her throat. You sound like one of those motivational posters in HR. God, I hope not. Those things are terrible. They stood there in the empty penthouse, holding hands. Two people who had spent their whole lives building walls and were finally brave enough to let someone climb over. Come to dinner, Randy said. Tonight. Nothing fancy. Just me and Jalin and whatever I can throw together from the refrigerator. That sounds terrifying. It is. Jalin's going to ask you 100 questions. Most of them won't make sense. What if he doesn't like me? He already likes you. You're the teddy bear lady. Adriana squeezed his hand. Okay. 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 Dinner. Tonight. She took a breath. But I'm bringing dessert. No arguments. Jalin will love that. What about you? Randy smiled a real smile, the kind he hadn't felt on his face in years. I already love it. They didn't kiss. They didn't need to. Some things were better left to build slowly, carefully, like houses made to last. But when Randy left the penthouse that afternoon, he carried something with him that he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Dinner was chaos. Jalin talked non-stop from the moment Adriana walked through the door. He showed her every drawing on the refrigerator, explained the complex backstory of each toy on the living room floor, and demonstrated his ability to count to 100 in Spanish, which he could only do up to 37, but Randy didn't correct him. Adriana sat on the floor with him, asking questions, laughing at his jokes, examining each crayon masterpiece, like it belonged in a museum. Randy watched from the kitchen, pretending to cook, while something in his chest expanded until it hurt. "Daddy says you were sad when you came here before," Jalen announced during dessert chocolate cake that Adriana had brought from a bakery downtown. "Jalen," Randy started. "It's okay." Adriana set down her fork. "Yes, I was sad. I was having a hard time." "Are you still sad?" "A little bit, but being here helps." Jalen considered this. "Daddy helps when I'm sad too. He makes funny faces and does the dinosaur voice." "The dinosaur voice?" "He pretends to be a T-Rex. It's really funny." Adriana looked at Randy with raised eyebrows. "The dinosaur voice? It's not that funny." "It's very funny," Jalen insisted. "Show her Daddy." "Maybe later." "Please, Jalen. I would also like to see the dinosaur voice," Adriana said, her eyes sparkling. Randy sighed. He knew when he was beaten. He stood up from the table, hunched his arms like tiny T-Rex limbs, and let out a roar that was half growl, half gurgle, and entirely ridiculous. Jalen collapsed into giggles. Adriana laughed so hard she snorted, which made Jalen laugh even harder, and Randy, standing in his small kitchen doing a terrible dinosaur impression, felt something he hadn't felt in years: joy. After dinner, while Jalen played in his room, Randy and Adriana sat on the second-hand couch with the torn armrest. "He's incredible," Adriana said. "You've done an amazing job with him." "I've done my best. Some days that's better than others. That's all any of us can do." She leaned her head against the back of the couch. "Thank you for tonight, for letting me be part of this. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't. I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to convince myself to drive away." "Why didn't you?" Adriana turned to look at him. "Because for the first time in my life, I wanted something more than I was afraid of losing it." "What do you want?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "This, whatever this is. Crayon drawings and chocolate cake and dinosaur voices. A life that actually feels like living." "That sounds terrifying." "It is," she smiled. "But I'm done letting fear make my decisions." Randy reached over and took her hand. It felt natural now, like something they had been doing for years instead of minutes. "I don't know what happens next," he said. "I don't have a plan. I don't have guarantees. All I have is a 5-year-old who thinks you're wonderful and a torn couch and a refrigerator full of leftover chicken." "That sounds perfect." "It's not. It's messy and chaotic, and sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing." "That also sounds perfect." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to Jalen's voice drifting down the hallway as he narrated an elaborate adventure to his stuffed animals. "He's telling Mr. Bear about the teddy bear lady," Randy said. "I can hear him." Adriana's voice was thick. "He's saying she makes his daddy smile." "He's not wrong." Adriana turned to face him. "Randy? Yeah? I'm going to kiss you now, if that's okay." "That's okay." She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his soft tentative, like a question being asked. Randy answered. The kiss was brief, but it said everything that words couldn't. It said, "I see you," and "I'm here," and "whatever comes next, we'll face it together." When they pulled apart, Adriana's eyes were bright with tears. "I'm still scared," she whispered. "Me too. But I'm also happy. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy." "So am I." From the bedroom, Jalen's voice called out, "Daddy, Mr. Bear wants to know if the teddy bear lady is staying for breakfast." Randy and Adriana looked at each other. "Well," Randy asked, "is she?" Adriana smiled, that real smile, the one that transformed her whole face. "Tell Mr. Bear yes." Breakfast became a regular thing. 3 times a week, Adriana showed up at Randy's apartment before dawn. She learned how Jalen liked his eggs scrambled with cheese, absolutely no onions. She learned that Randy drank his coffee black and couldn't function until his second cup. She learned the morning routine: breakfast, teeth-brushing backpack, checked the hunt for whatever shoe Jalen had lost the night before. "Found it!" Jalen yelled one morning, pulling his sneaker from under the couch. "It was hiding from me." "Shoes don't hide," Randy said, tying the laces. "This one does. It's sneaky." "That's why they call them sneakers," Adriana said from the kitchen. Jalen's eyes went wide. "Is that true, Daddy?" "Absolutely not." "But she said—" "She's making things up. Don't trust her." Adriana laughed. "Your father has no imagination." "What's imagination?" "It's when you make up stories in your head," Randy said. "Like when you told Mrs. Patterson that we have a pet dinosaur." "We could have a pet dinosaur." "We absolutely cannot." "Can the teddy bear lady come to school with me today?" Randy and Adriana exchanged glances. It had been 6 weeks since that first breakfast. 6 weeks of slowly building something neither of them had expected, but they had kept it private, contained, protected from the outside world. "Not today, buddy," Randy said. "Maybe another time." Jalen's face fell. "But I want to show her my classroom. I want everyone to see her." "Why?" "Because she's special." Jalen looked at Adriana with the pure certainty of a 5-year-old. "And special people should be showed off." The words hung in the air. Randy felt Adriana's eyes on him waiting. "He's not wrong," she said quietly. Randy knelt to zip up Jalen's jacket. "We'll talk about it later, okay? Right now, you need to get to school." "Promise." "Promise." But later came sooner than Randy expected. That afternoon, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Mrs. Patterson's number. "Mr. Samuel, I'm afraid there's been an incident." Randy's heart stopped. What kind of incident? Is Jalen okay? "He's fine physically, but there was a situation during show and tell. Jalen brought something to class that caused some concern among the other parents." "What did he bring?" Mrs. Patterson paused. "A photograph. Of you, him and a woman. He told the class she was his new mommy." Randy closed his eyes. "I see. Several parents have called. They recognize Ms. Wells from the news coverage of her divorce and resignation. They're concerned about the influence on their children. And frankly, Mr. Samuel, they're asking questions I don't have answers to. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I think that would be best." Randy drove to the school in a fog. He had been so careful, so protective, and still the world had found a way in. Jalen was waiting in the principal's office clutching the photograph. When he saw Randy, he ran over and threw his arms around his father's legs. "Daddy, am I in trouble?" "No, buddy, you're not in trouble." "Then why does everyone look mad?" Randy looked up at Mrs. Patterson and the principal, Dr. Henderson. Their faces were carefully neutral, the way people looked when they were trying not to judge. "Can we talk privately?" Randy asked. Dr. Henderson nodded. "Jalen, why don't you go with Mrs. Patterson to get a snack? Your father and I need to have a grown-up conversation." After Jalen left, Dr. Henderson closed the door. "Mr. Samuel, I want to be clear, Jalen hasn't done anything wrong. He's a wonderful child with a kind heart. But the situation has created some complications." "What kind of complications?" Several parents have expressed concern about their children being exposed to what they called an inappropriate relationship. They've asked that their children be moved to a different class. Randy felt his jaw tighten. An inappropriate relationship. Their words, not mine. "And what do you think, Dr. Henderson?" The principal hesitated. "I think Jalen clearly loves this woman, whoever she is. And I think you're a devoted father who has always put his son first. Beyond that, your personal life is none of my business." "But it's the business of these parents. They have the right to express concerns." "And do I have the right to be happy? Does my son have the right to have someone who loves him in his life?" Dr. Henderson's expression softened. "Of course. But you have to understand, Mr. Samuel, this is a small community. People talk. And when the person in question is a public figure, the talking gets louder." Randy stood abruptly. "Can I see the photograph?" Dr. Henderson handed it over. Randy looked at it, a selfie Adriana had taken 2 weeks ago. The three of them at the park, Jalen on Randy's shoulders, everyone laughing. It was the happiest Randy had looked in years. "I'm not ashamed of this," Randy said quietly. "I'm not going to apologize for having someone in my life who makes me and my son happy." "No one is asking you to apologize." "They're asking me to hide. That's the same thing." Dr. Henderson had no response to that. Randy picked up Jalen from the hallway. The boy was quiet in the car, sensing his father's mood. "Daddy, did I do something bad?" "No, buddy, you didn't do anything bad." "Then why is everyone upset?" Randy pulled into their apartment parking lot and turned off the engine. He sat there for a moment, trying to find the right words. "You know how some people don't like it when things are different?" Jalen nodded. "Like Tommy, who doesn't like it when we have pizza on Wednesdays instead of Fridays." "Exactly like that. Some people don't like change, and when they see something they don't understand, it makes them uncomfortable." "But Adriana isn't different. She's nice." "I know. But some people only see what's on the outside. They see that she looks different from us. They see that she used to be famous, and they make up stories in their heads about what that means." Jalen considered this. "That's dumb." "Yeah, buddy, it is. So what do we do?" Randy looked at his son, 5 years old, already facing a world that wanted to put him in a box. Already learning that being different came with a cost. "We keep being ourselves," Randy said. "We keep loving the people we love, and we don't let anyone else tell us who we're supposed to be. Even if they're mean. Especially if they're mean." Jalen nodded with 5-year-old determination. "Okay, Daddy, I can do that." "I know you can." Randy unbuckled his seatbelt. "Now come on, let's go call the teddy bear lady and tell her about your day." Adriana arrived that evening with takeout from Jalen's favorite Chinese restaurant. She listened as Randy explained what had happened at school. Her expression shifted from concern to anger to something that looked like guilt. "This is my fault," she said. "I brought this into your life." "You didn't bring anything. Jalen brought that photo because he's proud of you. And now he's being punished for it." "He's not being punished. He's learning that the world isn't always fair." Randy took her hand. That's a lesson he was going to learn eventually. At least this way he's learning it with people who love him. Adriana's eyes filled with tears. "I never wanted to complicate things for you." "You haven't. You've made things better." "How can you say that parents are demanding their kids be moved to different classes? People are talking about you at your job. Your entire life is being dissected because you made the mistake of getting involved with me." "It wasn't a mistake." "Randy, listen to me." He cupped her face in his hands. "I spent 34 years trying to avoid complications, trying to stay invisible, trying to be so small that no one would notice me. And you know what that got me? A life that was safe but empty. A son who was watching his father shrink. A future that looked exactly like the past." He wiped a tear from her cheek. "You didn't complicate my life, Adriana. You woke it up. For the first time in years, I actually want to see what tomorrow looks like. That's not a complication. That's a gift." "What if I cost you everything?" "Then at least I'll have lost something worth losing." He kissed her forehead. "I'm done running from my life. I'm done letting other people's opinions decide my happiness. If they want to talk, let them talk. If they want to judge, let them judge. I'm going to keep showing up for you, and for Jalen, and for myself." Adriana pulled him close, burying her face in his shoulder. "I don't deserve you. You deserve better. But you're stuck with me." She laughed through her tears. "I can live with that." From the hallway, Jalen's voice interrupted them. "Are you guys being mushy again?" Randy turned. His son stood in the doorway, teddy bear under one arm, expression somewhere between disgusted and curious. "Yes," Randy admitted. "Very mushy. Cover your eyes." "Gross." But Jalen was smiling. "Is the teddy bear lady staying for dinner?" "She brought Chinese food." Jalen's face lit up. "The kind with the little dumplings." The kind with the little dumplings. Yes. He ran over and hugged Adriana's legs. You're the best teddy bear lady. I try. Adriana ruffled his hair. Now go wash your hands. Dinner's getting cold. As Jalen scampered off to the bathroom, Adriana looked at Randy. He called me the teddy bear lady again. He's never going to stop. I don't want him to. She smiled. It's the best thing anyone's ever called me. The weeks that followed were a test. Randy's supervisor called him into a meeting to discuss concerns about his personal life affecting his work performance. Randy listened politely, then asked if there had been any actual issues with his performance. There hadn't. Then I don't see what we need to discuss, Randy said, and walked out. At school, 2 families followed through on their threat to move their children to different classes. Mrs. Patterson quietly told Randy that the remaining parents had rallied around him after learning the full story. They like you, Mr. Samuel, she said. They see how much you love your son. That counts for more than gossip. Adriana started volunteering at a nonprofit that helped women leaving abusive relationships. She worked 60 hours a week for no salary and came home happier than she'd ever been at Wells Technologies. I spent 15 years building a company, she told Randy one evening. But I never built anything that mattered. Not really. The stock price went up, the shareholders got rich, and at the end of the day, nothing changed for anyone who needed changing. And now I helped a woman get her children back from foster care. I helped a teenager get her GED. I helped a single mother find housing that didn't cost her entire paycheck. Her eyes shone. I actually made a difference. A real tangible difference in someone's life. That sounds like it matters. It does. For the first time in my life, my work actually matters. Randy pulled her close. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too. She laughed. That's new. I've never been proud of myself before. I've been successful. I've been rich. I've been powerful. But proud? That's different. What changed? I stopped measuring myself by what I achieved and started measuring myself by who I helped. She looked at him. You taught me that. I didn't teach you anything. You taught me everything. You showed me what it looks like to put someone else first. You showed me what a real life looks like, messy and chaotic and full of love. Her voice dropped. You showed me what I was missing all those years I was climbing to the top. Randy didn't know what to say, so he just held her, letting the silence speak for itself. 3 months after the school incident, Adriana made a decision. I want to talk to the parents, she said. The ones who complained. I want to meet them face to face. Randy stared at her. Why? Because they don't know me. They know a headline. They know a scandal. They don't know who I actually am. She straightened her shoulders. If I'm going to be part of Jalen's life, part of your life, I need to be more than a rumor. You don't owe them anything. This isn't about owing. It's about choosing. Adriana met his eyes. I'm done letting other people's stories define me. If they want to know who I am, I'll tell them. And if they still don't accept me after that, at least it'll be based on the truth. Randy considered her for a long moment. The woman standing in front of him was not the same person who had knocked on his door at midnight, mascara streaming down her face. She had changed, grown, become someone who faced fear instead of running from it, just like he had. Okay, Randy said. Let's do it. The parent meeting happened on a Thursday evening at the school gymnasium. Randy and Adriana arrived together. They walked through the doors holding hands, and Randy felt every eye in the room turn toward them. Dr. Henderson made introductions. Several parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few crossed their arms defensively. Adriana stepped forward. Thank you for being here, she began. I know most of you only know me from news articles and gossip, so I want to tell you who I actually am. She took a breath. My name is Adriana Wells. I was the CEO of a tech company. I was married for 12 years to a man who cheated on me for 2 of them. And 6 months ago, when my life fell apart, I did something that doesn't make sense on paper. I showed up at a stranger's door at midnight because I had nowhere else to go." The room was silent. That stranger was Randy Samuel, a man who had every reason to close the door in my face. A black man opening his door to a white woman in the middle of the night in this country, that's not just awkward. It's dangerous. He knew that. I knew that. And he let me in anyway. She looked at Randy. He made me tea. He listened to me cry. And when I left, he didn't expect anything in return. He didn't try to use me or leverage my connections or get something out of the situation. He just saw a person who was hurting and chose to help. She turned back to the parents. "I know some of you are worried about what my presence means for your children. You're worried about scandal and gossip and what other people might think. I understand that. I spent my whole career worrying about the same things. But here's what I've learned. The things we worry about, reputation, appearances, what the neighbors might say, those things don't matter. What matters is the people we love and the choices we make when no one is watching." She gestured toward Randy. "This man has taught me more about integrity in 6 months than I learned in 40 years of running a company. He puts his son first. He shows up even when it's hard. He does the right thing even when it costs him. And I am a better person for knowing him." Her voice strengthened. "I'm not asking for your approval. I'm not asking you to like me or accept me or invite me to your book clubs. I'm just asking you to judge me by who I actually am, not by what you've read in the headlines. And I'm asking you to see Randy for who he actually is: a devoted father, an honorable man, and someone who deserves to be happy." She stopped. The gymnasium was completely silent. Then from the back of the room, one of the mothers started clapping. It spread slowly at first, then faster. Within 30 seconds, the entire room was applauding. One of the fathers, who had demanded his child be moved to a different class, stood up. "Ms. Wells, I owe you an apology," he said. "I judged you without knowing you. That's not the kind of person I want to be, and it's not the kind of example I want to set for my kids." He extended his hand toward Randy. "Mr. Samuel, I'm sorry. You seem like a good man. I shouldn't have assumed otherwise." Randy shook his hand. "Thank you." After the meeting, as the parents filed out, several stopped to introduce themselves to Adriana. One woman invited her to join the PTA. Another asked if she'd be interested in speaking at a women's leadership event. "What just happened?" Adriana asked as they walked to the car. "You told the truth," Randy said. "And it turned out people actually respond to that." "Since when?" "Since you reminded them that we're all just people trying to figure things out." He opened her car door. "You did good tonight." "We did good." She slid into the seat. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have." "Maybe, but I didn't want to." She pulled him down for a kiss. "I don't want to do anything without you anymore." Randy smiled against her lips. "That's good, because I'm not going anywhere." That night, after Jalen was asleep, Randy and Adriana sat on the second-hand couch with the torn armrest. "I've been thinking," Randy said. "About what?" "About what comes next. About what kind of life I want to build." He took her hand. "I've been working at that company for 8 years. 8 years of being invisible. 8 years of not growing, not advancing, not becoming anything more than I was on day one." "Are you thinking about leaving?" "I'm thinking about finally doing what I should have done years ago." Randy pulled out a notebook. "I've been studying for my independent financial consulting certification. I could start my own practice, help people who actually need help instead of processing expense reports for executives who don't even know my name." Adriana's eyes lit up. "Randy, that's incredible." "It's terrifying. I'd be giving up the only stability I've ever known. And I have Jalen to think about. I can't just take risks like I'm a single guy with nothing to lose." "You're not alone anymore." She squeezed his hand. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. We'll figure it out together." "That's the other thing I've been thinking about." Randy took a breath. "This apartment. It's small. Jalen's growing. And honestly, I want more room for what we're building. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time we stopped living in two different places. Maybe it's time we made this official. Adriana's breath caught. Randy. I'm not proposing. Not yet. But I'm saying I want a future with you. A real future. Not just breakfasts and weekends and stolen moments. I want the whole thing. The hard parts and the easy parts and everything in between. Her eyes filled with tears. I want that too. Yeah. More than anything. Randy pulled her close. Then let's build it. Together. Together, she whispered. And in that small apartment with the crayon drawings on the refrigerator and the toys on the floor and the second-hand couch that had held so many late-night conversations, two people who had spent their lives being afraid finally chose something bigger than fear. They chose each other. 6 months changed everything. Randy passed his financial consulting certification on the first try. He gave his 2-week notice at Wells Technologies the same day, walking out of the building he had spent 8 years making himself invisible in for the last time. No regrets? Adriana asked as they celebrated at home that evening. None. Randy raised his glass. I spent 8 years waiting for someone to notice me. Turns out the only person who needed to notice me was myself. That's very philosophical. I've been practicing. Jalen ran into the room clutching a piece of paper. Daddy, I made you a graduation card. Randy took it carefully. The crayon drawing showed 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, one small, standing in front of a building with the words, Daddy's Office, written in wobbly letters. Is this my new office? Yeah. And that's you, and that's me, and that's the teddy bear lady. Jalen pointed at each figure. We're all going to work there together. Buddy, you're going to be in school. I know, but I can come visit. Right. Randy looked at Adriana over Jalen's head. Right. You can always visit. The first year was hard. Randy's consulting business started slowly. 2 clients the first month, 4 the second, 8 by the 6th month. He worked out of a tiny rented office that cost more than he could afford and came home exhausted most nights. But he came home happy. How was your day? Adriana would ask, and Randy would tell her about the single mother he helped file taxes for the first time, or the elderly couple he guided through their retirement planning, or the small business owner who finally understood why his cash flow didn't make sense. These people, Randy said one night, they've been ignored by the system their whole lives. Banks don't want to talk to them. Big firms don't have time for them. They fall through every crack. And you're catching them. I'm trying. It's not glamorous. Most of them can't afford to pay what I'm worth. But when I see their faces when they finally understand their own finances, when they realize they're not stupid, just underserved, it's worth more than any paycheck. Adriana pulled him close. I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of us. They moved in together on a Sunday in March. Not into Adriana's glass penthouse or Randy's cramped apartment, but into a modest house with a backyard, the first backyard Jalen had ever had. He ran through the grass for an hour straight, arms spread wide making airplane sounds. He's never going to stop, Randy said watching from the porch. Good. Adriana leaned against his shoulder. I hope he never stops. You know what this means, right? We're really doing this. Living together. Building a life. I know. Are you scared? Adriana considered the question. I used to be scared of everything. Scared of failure. Scared of what people thought. Scared of being alone. She took his hand. Now I'm only scared of not living fully while I have the chance. That's very brave. I learned from someone. Jalen came running over, breathless and grass-stained. Daddy, there's a tree in the backyard. A real tree. Can we build a treehouse? Maybe. Please. I've always wanted a treehouse. Randy looked at Adriana. What do you think? I think we should build a treehouse. Jalen cheered and ran back to examine the tree, already planning his elevated kingdom. You know I have no idea how to build a treehouse, Randy said. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. That seems to be our approach to everything. It's working so far. The treehouse took 3 months and looked nothing like the pictures. The walls were crooked. The floor creaked. The ladder was slightly too short. But Jalan declared it the best treehouse in the whole world. And that was the only review that mattered. "Daddy," he said one evening as they sat in the treehouse watching the sunset, "are you going to marry the teddy bear lady?" Randy nearly choked on his lemonade. "What?" "Tommy at school says when people live together and love each other, they get married. Do you love the teddy bear lady?" "Yes, I do." "Then are you going to marry her?" Randy looked down at the backyard where Adriana was setting the table for dinner. She looked up and waved, and something in Randy's chest expanded. "Would you be okay with that?" he asked. "If I married her?" Jalan considered the question with 6-year-old seriousness. "Would she be my mom then?" "She would be your stepmom. It's like a bonus mom." "Would I have to stop calling her the teddy bear lady?" "Only if you want to." Jalan nodded slowly. "I think it would be good. You smile more when she's around, and she makes really good pancakes. Those are important qualities." "The most important." Jalan stood up. "I'm going to go tell her you want to marry her." "Wait, Jalan." But the boy was already climbing down the ladder, racing across the backyard toward Adriana. Randy watched in horror as Jalan tugged on Adriana's sleeve and started talking animatedly. Adriana's eyes went wide. Then she looked up at Randy in the treehouse. Even from this distance, he could see her smile. She said something to Jalan, who nodded and pointed at the treehouse. Then she walked across the yard and climbed up the ladder. "So," she said, settling onto the platform beside him, "Jalan tells me you have something you want to ask me. I'm going to kill that kid. He's very excited. He says he wants to be the ring bear." Ring bearer. He was very specific about being a bear. Randy laughed despite himself. "I didn't plan it this way. I had a whole speech prepared. Reservations at a nice restaurant. A ring hidden in my pocket." "You have a ring." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I've been carrying it around for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment." Adriana's eyes filled with tears. "Randy, I know this isn't how it's supposed to go. I know we're supposed to be in some romantic location, not sitting in a crooked treehouse that took 3 months to build and still doesn't have a proper roof. I love this treehouse. I love you." Randy opened the box. The ring was simple, a single diamond on a gold band, but Adriana looked at it like it was the most precious thing she had ever seen. "When you knocked on my door that night," Randy continued, "you were the last thing I expected, and the last thing I thought I wanted. I had spent so long building walls, making myself small, trying to be invisible. You crashed through all of that." "I wasn't trying to." "I know. That's what makes it real." He took her hand. "You showed me that I was worth seeing, worth knowing, worth loving. You reminded me that life is supposed to be messy and chaotic and full of surprises. And I don't want to spend another day without you." He held up the ring. "Adriana Wells, will you marry me?" She didn't answer with words. She answered by throwing her arms around his neck and kissing him so hard they nearly fell out of the treehouse. "Is that a yes?" Randy managed when they finally pulled apart. "That's a yes, 1,000 times yes." From the backyard below, Jalan's voice rang out. "Did she say yes?" "She said yes," Randy called back. "Yes." Jalan started running in circles, arms spread wide again, making airplane sounds. Randy and Adriana looked at each other and laughed. "We're really doing this," she said. "We're really doing this." They were married in the backyard 3 months later. The guest list was small. Mrs. Patterson, a few neighbors, some of Randy's new clients who had become friends, the women from Adriana's nonprofit. Jalan served as ring bearer, wearing a bear costume he had insisted on, despite Randy's arguments that ring bearers didn't actually dress as bears. "He's not wrong technically," Adriana had said. Let him be a bear. The ceremony was short. The vows were simple. I was invisible before you, Randy said. I thought that was safety. I thought that was survival. You showed me it was just hiding. You taught me that being seen isn't dangerous. Being unseen is. Because when no one sees you, no one loves you. And when no one loves you, what's the point of being safe? Adriana wiped her eyes. I promise to keep seeing you, Randy continued. Every day, even when it's hard, even when we disagree, even when you eat all the chocolate chips before they make it into the pancakes. That was one time, she whispered. It was 3 times. She laughed through her tears. I promise to show up, he finished. I'm always there. Remember? That's what you heard in the elevator. That's what made you knock on my door. And I'm going to keep saying it every day until you never doubt it again. I'm always there. For you, for Jalin, for this life we're building together. Adriana's vows were shorter, but no less powerful. I've achieved everything the world says you're supposed to achieve. Money, power, success. And none of it made me happy. None of it made me feel like I belonged. You did that. You and Jalin and this ridiculous treehouse and this messy, beautiful life. She took his hands. I promise to keep being brave, to keep showing up even when I'm scared, to keep building something real instead of something impressive. And I promise that when I fall, because I will fall, I'll let you catch me, because that's what love is. Not never falling, just always having someone to help you back up. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Jalin cheered, and Randy kissed his bride, while a 6-year-old in a bear costume danced around them throwing flower petals. It was perfect. Absolutely, imperfectly perfect. 5 years later, Randy's consulting practice had grown beyond anything he had imagined. What started as one man in a tiny office had become a team of 12 serving communities that traditional financial services had ignored. They had opened 3 locations across the city, each one staffed by people who had once been overlooked themselves. We're not just teaching people about money, Randy told a reporter during an interview. We're teaching them that they matter, that their future is worth planning for, that someone sees them. And where did that philosophy come from? Randy smiled. From my wife. She knocked on my door when she had nowhere else to go, and she reminded me that everyone deserves to be seen. I'm just passing that lesson along. At home, the family had grown too. Jalin was 11 now, tall for his age, with his father's serious eyes and his stepmother's stubborn streak. He had stopped calling Adriana the teddy bear lady 2 years ago. Now she was just Mom. But the original teddy bear still sat on his bookshelf, worn from years of love, and there was another member of the family now. Maya had come to them through the foster system at age 3. She had been with them for 2 years, officially adopted for 1. She called Randy Daddy and Adriana Mommy and followed Jalin around like he was a superhero. She's copying me again, Jalin complained one evening as Maya tried to climb into the treehouse behind him. That's what little sisters do, Randy said. They look up to their big brothers. It's annoying. It's love. You'll appreciate it eventually. When you're older and you realize that having someone who looks up to you is a gift. Jalin considered this. Did you have someone who looked up to you? Not until you. Randy ruffled his son's hair. You were my reason to be better. And now Maya has you. That's how it works. We become who we need to be for the people who need us. That's deep, Dad. I've been practicing. Adriana came out onto the porch, Maya on her hip. Dinner's ready. Jalin, can you help set the table? Why can't Maya help? Because she's 4 and will break everything. Fine. Jalin climbed down from the treehouse, stopping to pat Maya's head. Come on, tiny human. Let's go eat. Maya giggled and reached for her brother. Jally. It's Jalin. Jalin. Jally. Close enough. Randy watched his children walk inside Jalin, holding Maya's hand so she wouldn't trip on the porch steps. Something in his chest expanded until it ached. Adriana settled beside him on the porch swing. What are you thinking about? about how different my life is from what I expected. Good different or bad different? Terrifying different. He pulled her close. The best kind. Any regrets? Randy thought about the question. About the night she had knocked on his door. About the fear he had felt. About everything he had risked and everything he had gained. None, he said. Not a single one. 10 years after that midnight knock, Randy stood at a podium in a community center gymnasium. The room was packed. 200 people had come to hear him speak. Young men and women from the neighborhoods he served, families who had been helped by his practice, business leaders who wanted to learn his approach. People ask me all the time what my secret is, Randy began. How did a black single father from a 2-bedroom apartment build a company that serves 20,000 families a year? How did I go from invisible to this? He paused, looking out at the crowd. The answer is, I stopped trying to be invisible. A murmur rippled through the audience. I spent 34 years of my life making myself small. Keeping my head down, not making waves. I thought that was survival. I thought that was protecting myself and my son. But I was wrong. I wasn't surviving. I was disappearing. Piece by piece, day by day, I was erasing myself to make the world more comfortable. He found Adriana in the audience. She was sitting in the front row, Maya on her lap, Jalen beside her. All three of them were watching him with the same expression. Pride, love, the certainty of belonging. Then one night someone knocked on my door. Someone who had everything the world says you're supposed to want: money, power, success, and she was falling apart. She came to me because she heard me say something on a phone call. 3 words. I'm always there. He took a breath. Those words changed both our lives. Not because they were special, but because they were true. I didn't say them to impress anyone. I didn't say them to get something. I said them because that's who I am. A father who shows up. A man who keeps his promises. A person who refuses to let fear decide his future. The room was completely silent. That's my secret. That's the only thing that matters. Not business strategies or financial models or growth metrics. Just this: decide who you want to be and then be that person every single day. Especially when it's hard. Especially when you're scared. Especially when the world is telling you to be smaller, quieter, safer. He leaned into the microphone. You are not invisible. You have never been invisible. The world might try to make you believe you are, but that's a lie. You matter. Your story matters. Your future matters. And anyone who tells you otherwise is wrong. The applause started slowly, then built into a wave. People stood. Jelen whistled. Maya clapped her small hands together without understanding why, just happy to be part of the noise. Randy stepped away from the podium and walked into the audience. He picked Maya up from Adriana's lap and pulled Jalen into a side hug. His wife stood and wrapped her arms around all of them. You did good, Adriana whispered in his ear. We did good. I love you. I love you too. All of you. Jalen squirmed. Dad, people are taking pictures. Let them. It's embarrassing. It's family. Get used to it. Maya patted Randy's face. Daddy talk good. Thanks, baby girl. Can we get ice cream now? Yes, we can definitely get ice cream. They walked out of the community center together. Father, mother, son, daughter. 4 people who had become a family because one woman knocked on one door on one desperate night. The car was parked across the street. Maya wanted to walk, so they let her, holding her hands as she toddled between them. Jalen ran ahead, still too old to hold hands, but not too old to look back and make sure they were following. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't opened that door? Adriana asked. Sometimes. What do you imagine? Randy considered the question. I imagine a man who is still invisible, still scared, still teaching his son to be small. He shook his head. I don't like that version of me. Neither do I. So I try not to think about him too much. He's not real anymore. This is real. He gestured at their children, at the car waiting, at the life they had built. This is the only version that matters. At home that evening after Maya was asleep and Jalan was in his room doing homework, Randy and Adriana sat in the treehouse. It was falling apart now. The walls were more crooked than ever. The floor had developed a concerning creak, but neither of them could bear to take it down. "We should build a new one," Adriana said. "A better one." "We should, but I kind of love this one. It's a death trap. It's our death trap." Randy leaned back against the wall. "This is where we got engaged, where Jalan told us he was okay with us being together, where we've had 100 conversations about nothing and everything, where you taught me that it's okay to be messy, where you taught me that it's okay to be seen." Adriana rested her head on his shoulder. "We've come a long way. We have further to go. I know, and I can't wait." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one above their crooked treehouse. "Randy? Yeah, thank you." "For what?" "For opening the door, for letting me in, for choosing to be brave when you could have stayed safe." Randy kissed the top of her head. "Thank you for knocking, for seeing me when I was invisible, for teaching me that the best things in life are the ones we never planned. We make a good team. The best." From Maya's bedroom, a small voice called out, "Mommy, Daddy, I had a bad dream." Adriana started to stand, but Randy was faster. "I've got her." He climbed down from the treehouse and walked into the house. Maya was sitting up in bed, her eyes wide, the teddy bear that had once belonged to Jalan clutched against her chest. "What was the dream about?" Randy asked, settling beside her. "Monsters. They were trying to take you away." "No monsters are going to take me anywhere." Randy pulled her close. "You know why. Why? Because I'm always here, no matter what. You can count on that." Maya looked up at him with absolute trust. "Promise. Promise. I'm always there." She snuggled against his chest, the fear already fading. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. More than the moon. More than the stars. More than everything." Maya was asleep within minutes. Randy sat there for a while, holding his daughter, listening to the sounds of his family settling into the night. Jalan's music drifting from his bedroom. Adriana's footsteps on the stairs. The creaking of their house, their home full of life and love, and all the beautiful chaos that came with it. He thought about the man he used to be, the invisible accountant on the 4th floor, the single father counting every penny, the person who believed that safety was the same as happiness. That man was gone now. In his place was someone better, someone braver, someone who had learned that the scariest thing in the world isn't opening the door to uncertainty, it's keeping it closed and wondering what might have been. Randy carried Maya to her bed and tucked her in. He kissed her forehead and whispered the words that had started everything. "I'm always there." Then he walked out of the room, closing the door gently behind him, and went to find his wife. They had a future to build. And for the first time in Randy Samuel's life, he couldn't wait to see what it looked like. Because that's what happens when you stop being invisible and start being brave. You don't just find yourself. You find everything you never knew you were missing. And once you find it, you hold on. No matter what, no matter who, no matter how scary it seems, you hold on, and you never let go. That's not just love, that's life. And it is worth every single risk.